Hey guys, this is Captain Lincoln with Fireteam Whiskey, and this is our first Warrior Wellness video. So today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most important things that you need to do to ensure that outside change is lasting. So I am an eating psychology expert, and I I do this for a living. I work with people on making this interchange to make sure that all the kind of efforts we're making to feel better and look better with our fitness and health lasts for a very long time. So I'm going to share my screen with you so you can take a look at our PowerPoint. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what I do, why this is important, and why we've kind of integrated the Warrior Wellness stuff into Fireteam Whiskey. And I'm a huge believer that, you know, the diet and fitness industry wouldn't be $1 billion industry if any of it worked. So the reason why all of these programs fail time after time after time, it doesn't matter what you do, it matters what you're doing in here. So you need to make the internal changes that are a requirement for anything else to be permanent. So I'm going to talk to you about nutritional psychology. So yes, our behaviors have a lot to do with our psychology. Our behaviors have a lot to do with what's going on inside of us. So why am I qualified to teach you this? Well, I have a master's in counseling psychology, so I am an expert in behavior change and the things that affect our behavior, like emotions and mental wellness and stress, and all of those things come into play when it comes to trying to lose weight. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I have specialized training and therapeutic techniques for people with obesity. So this isn't just for people who are obese. So if you're watching this and you're not obese and you say, this isn't for me, this is for you. This is for everyone. This is for me. This is what changed my life and got me on the track of progress and getting off the diet yo-yo roller coaster and gaining weight, losing it, gaining and losing it, which is super not healthy for you, but also it's unhealthy for you mentally. And these kind of techniques changed my life, and it changed a lot of clients that I've worked with, their lives as well. So I have a lot of experience in this. I'm also a certified personal trainer with several group fitness certifications, so I understand the physiology as well. So I've got both covered. And then, of course, I created Fireteam Whiskey Military Fitness Protocol based on the techniques that I feel like every military and first responder should know in order to ensure that they spend their entire lives fit to fight, ready for the mission, no matter what. So we're not just waiting until our physical fitness test that comes around once a year to start training and get healthier. That we're doing this every day for the rest of our lives, no matter if you're still in uniform or not. I no longer wear the uniform, but I still approach my fitness and health with that sense of readiness. So making sure that I am ready on a daily basis, no matter what. I may not be called to war, but things come up, I need to be fit and ready to go. Also, I want to feel good and healthy and fit and strong within my body, because we only have one body, and what we do to it is how long it's going to last. So with Fireteam Whiskey, I have created a unique eating plan, fitness plans, unique supplements that are based on a specific way of eating that is shown by research to work with the body's processes instead of against, which is what most diets do. I spent 10 years in the Florida Army National Guard, 5 years enlisted, 5 years an officer, and then I also worked an additional 7 years as a civilian contractor working in the areas of mental health with not only the Army National Guard, but also the Air National Guard and National Guard Bureau. And yes, I was a TAC officer, so that's basically the officer version of a drill sergeant, so I know how to put a boot up somebody's ass, which is sometimes what we need. So what is nutritional psychology? So it's just about understanding. It's about knowledge. So knowledge is empowerment. You need to have an understanding about how food affects your body. If you just don't know that, and you're just consuming all these things with chemicals in it and tons of sugar, and then you're drinking gallons of soda and Monster energy drinks, you don't understand how that food affects your body. You need to have that understanding, because if you had even 50% understanding what those things do to your body, it would terrify you and you would never have them again. And then you need to understand how food affects your brain. Yes, food affects your brain. You know that because you get these really intense cravings for food, or you get really, really irritable when you're hungry. So you know that your brain is affected by your food. So you need to have an understanding about that process as well. And also you need to understand how food affects your emotions. So if it affects your brain, it's affecting your emotions. So that's where your emotions come from, or from those central systems in the brain. You also need to understand your own behavioral patterns, and how we kind of get into a rut and get into repetitive behaviors and even addictive behaviors when it comes to food. And then you also, with all of that knowledge in place, need to understand kind of the behavioral mechanisms and the tools that you can put in place in your life on a daily basis to help you deal with all of the above. So, basic understanding. So in part one, I'm only going to talk about the basic understanding. I'm not going into super detail because that would take like 2 hours, and I'm trying to keep this webinar to like 30 minutes. So we're just going to talk about basic understanding about the way our body works. You need to understand that. I know you're like, oh, I don't want to take a biology class, but this is a little bit of that, but it's super important for you to be successful. So guess what? You still have your primitive caveman brain. So those, the base parts of our brain, the base of our skull, our amygdala, those kind of basic survival biological mechanisms are still in our brain. Now we have evolved and developed those outer layers in the brain, but you got to understand those basic mechanisms that made our species survive for that long are still there. Why do I need to know that? Because guess what? It affects the way your body responds to food, and affects the way your behavior responds to food. So these basic caveman brain mechanisms are active still. So no matter what, you can't just say, well, I'm not a caveman, I'm in modern society, and that just doesn't apply to me. That's not true. These things are happening. These areas are being stimulated on a daily basis. So what do we need to know about our caveman brain? How did our species survive? Basics. How did they survive? What were they concerned about? Survival. All right. So that requires what? Food and water, and safety, and reproduction of the species. Those 4 things on a daily basis is all they cared about. So functioning with that small area of the brain, that's all you cared about. Every single behavior during the day and at night was geared towards those 4 things. That's how basic we were. So our body, because of times of famine, or we were nomadic, or maybe it was winter and things weren't growing and all the animals were hibernating. So our ancestors went very long periods of time without food. They could go days, they could go weeks, they could go months, and yes, still survive. I mean, that's all you need is water. You can survive for a year without food. Yeah, you're going to get pretty emaciated, but you can survive. So our body is designed to deal with that, or to deal with that situation. The brain in my head right now still has that mechanism. So it's always ready for times of famine. And guess what the body does when we go a little period of time without food? It sends all those signals to store fat. So you know how hungry you get and angry you get after you go a few hours. That's what's happening. That area of the brain is being triggered. So your body is sending all those signals saying, either get some food or we're going to start storing fat. So, and also it encourages our behavior to overeat, to store fat, because again, our bodies didn't know when the next time was that we were going to have some food. So maybe I hunted today and we didn't find anything, and tomorrow didn't find anything, and tomorrow. So we can go days and days and days. So the body is set up to, when we get that animal, so let's say we killed a deer today, we're going to eat every single part of that deer. And you still see that with tribal groups nowadays have done a lot of studies with nutrition with tribal groups, is they will gorge themselves and eat thousands and thousands and thousands more calories in that day than they normally do. And that's because our bodies are designed that way. So when you get it all stored. So the body obviously doesn't need, that 10,000 calories you just had. So what does it do with it? It stores it as fat to get ready for maybe the next week when we don't find anything when we're hunting and we have to survive on our body fat. And it's also, our bodies are also geared to endure long periods of fasting. So our body is amazing. I mean, you see all of those people who have been prisoner of war, and they've basically had nothing to eat for months and months. And you're like, how do they survive? That's the body. Those are those innate mechanisms in our brain that shut all these processes down and slow everything down so we can start just basically surviving on our body fat and surviving for months and months and months without food. We still have those mechanisms. And then it stimulates our behavior. So all of those things that our ancestors had to do on a daily basis are still happening, or they're still driving our behavior on a daily basis. So why is that important, and why does it affect us now? We're not cavemen anymore, right? Well, all of those areas are stimulated. Anytime we had a threat, safety, food, or reproduction, it triggers those areas of the brain. So our caveman brain wants a lot of food so it can store fat, and it wants to send you hunger signals to eat a lot of food so we can store fat, because it still thinks that we're going to go months and months without food. And our body resists switching from fat burn and stays in glucose burn. Why is that? Because body fat is super important to our survival. It is our last ditch, basically. It's the body's last ditch, last source of fuel. So our body does very good burning carbs and glycogen, right? And our body produces glycogen. Did you know that? Your liver produces glycogen. Our body is basically a sugar factory. So our body likes that easy, quick resource, and it can make it its own. The body doesn't make its own fat. You have to consume things in order for the body to make the body fat that is stored. So our body doesn't like to switch to burning fat, because that means we're in emergency mode, and the body does not like being in emergency mode. So it avoids it at all possible, but there's a way to force it. And then our brains light up like Christmas trees with the dopamine and the happy hormones when we are eating glycogen, carbs, sugar, because our body says, yes, I love that quick source of energy. That's what I want. I want to load up on that so I don't have to burn body fat and be in emergency mode. So that's why it sends you all those wonderful chemicals. I mean, really, think about it. Are you affected the way you are when you eat like a cupcake, or for me, it's ice cream? Think of like a really carby, maybe sugary thing that you just absolutely love. And that first bite or first drink is just, that's what's going on. Your caveman brain is sending the signals to you going, yes, yes, good, more, because it wants you to stay in glycogen burn mode. So, you don't get that when you eat a piece of broccoli. You just don't, no matter how much you love broccoli. And I love broccoli. You just don't get it. And then also, all of those mechanisms, that base of your brain, that caveman brain, are all where those areas are, where the hormones are produced that affect our hormones, that affect our metabolism, that word. So these are also super important areas that our caveman is in control of. So we just talked about kind of that sugar hormone, happy stuff going on. Again, this goes back to understanding the way food affects your brain. So sugar and wheat and carbohydrates, heavy carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, light up your brain like a Christmas tree, actually even more than things like cocaine. So it's the same exact response. Same areas of the brain, same floods of those happy hormones happen when you eat sugar and carbs. So there's a lot of body chemistry going on to reinforce that behavior and to tell you to keep doing it. But it's because of what I just covered with the easy energy source that your body still craves. So it's unlike any other food. You don't get that same response when you eat broccoli. And then the only comparison, and they've done all these MRIs and CAT scans to show that the only other things in this world that make your brain light up like sugar does is drugs, alcohol, and nicotine. So all of those things, are very addictive things. So is sugar. So yes, sugar is an addiction. It is confirmed. And then the blood chemistry that goes on. So the blood chemistry is super important and does affect your brain as well, because your blood is coursing through your body and transferring in between that blood-brain barrier and sending those signals to your brain. So insulin release is a huge, huge, huge part of this, and you really do need to understand how insulin and how important it is to your body and the way it functions. So the higher the insulin release, the more your body signals storing fat. So you've heard of diabetics. So these are people who have too much sugar in their blood. That means their insulin receptors are not being able to take in all that glucose. It's just overwhelmed. So our insulin brings that blood sugar down, but we only have so many receptors, and they get damaged over time and too much bombardment by the glycogen. And then so that's a long-term insulin resistance. And then the glucose has nowhere to go. So that creates high blood sugar and wreaks all sorts of havoc in your body. So that's why diabetics get very sick and have all those chronic health issues. So we have a liver, and it stores glycogen. The caveman brain does not want you to turn to fat to store, because that means it's an emergency, and the body doesn't like being in emergency mode. So it is frantically signaling your brain to adjust your behavior to put that sugar back into the liver, because the liver is a sugar factory, but it's a very slow sugar factory. So sometimes it can't really keep up with the body's demand. So the body gets in preserve energy mode and starts slowing down all your processes once your glycogen starts dropping. So that's that sugar crash, right? So we've all experienced it, where you have a lot of sugar and you get all inundated and hyped up, and then your body gets depleted of it. It stores it as fat or fills back in your liver, and then the blood glucose comes down, and you're like, and you start falling asleep, or you just get really fatigued or tired or irritated. So that's when all the higher functions are slowed. So that means the body starts slowing down again. So most Americans go through life on a daily basis on this blood sugar roller coaster. They eat, get super high, and then it goes crash. And then when you crash, you eat more. And then all day long, you're just on this crazy roller coaster of highs and lows. So there's a lot of connections to our biological processes, our caveman brain, and then the higher brain. So that think of the caveman brain as that base brain, the kind of more biological functions. And then we have this higher brain. So as we've evolved, we have all these complex thoughts and behaviors and emotions that have developed over the years. So, and this is a major part of the psychology part. So think about it. In infancy, what was your comfort? It was your mother's arms, so a closeness, a warmth, and food, and getting your diaper changed. So you were only worried about like kind of 3 things, and sleep. So, but food was a reward. I mean, instantly, the only time you ever got food, it was a reward. It was comforting. It was good. It was making me stop crying. So from the get-go, from the moment you're born, you learn that food is comfort. So that's just, think about, it's just etched in your brain. Food equals comfort. And then when you become a toddler, that's when, it's like training a puppy, right? If you want to get a toddler to do something, just tell them you're going to give them a marshmallow and they'll do anything. So then food becomes a reward. That's where they start learning that kind of associative behavior between doing something in order to get that reward of food. And then when you're a child, food equals fun, right? So you go to birthday parties and family dinners and Christmas and all this fun stuff where you get lots of food and lots of yummy food, and it's a big social occasion and everybody's happy. So food equals fun. And then adolescence. So food becomes autonomy. So you remember, like, the first time when you're an adolescent, you started driving and you were able to go out to eat. If you didn't want to eat what mom cooked, you could just go get something yourself, and you were just so independent. And then you start earning money to buy your own food, and it becomes kind of an autonomous thing. And then you could go out to dinner with your friends, and it becomes a socialization, which turns into adulthood. So in adulthood, what do we do when we do social occasions? So if hey, let's go hang out with a friend, or let's do a family occasion. Is there ever not food at these things? No. You're always like going out to eat, bringing food together, having dinner with somebody, or even just going to a coffee shop and having a pastry and a coffee. So adulthood, food equals socialization. So from birth to death, food is there at every occasion and has become ingrained in our daily behaviors and our daily lives. I mean, you couldn't probably imagine a day without food, right? Most of us haven't gone a day in our lives without food. You may have gone a lot of hours without food, but most of us have never actually experienced that. And then emotions. So obviously, we're going to connect some emotions with food because it is such an ingrained part of our lives. So I always say food is my best friend. Food is everybody's best friend. It's always there when you need it, right? You can, no matter what, if you're lonely or, if you're not feeling good, you can always turn to food. It's always there. It's always in reach, or you can just get to it pretty quickly. It doesn't make demands. Food never asks you to clean your room. Food never asks you to do the laundry. Food's a pretty darn good friend. They never ask you for anything. Food makes us feel so good. Yes, I don't even need to elaborate on that. You have your favorite foods or things that you just absolutely love, and it just makes you feel so good, even no matter how bad of a day you're having. And then food's always an appropriate, no matter what the occasion. So somebody just had a baby, you bring them food. You have a party with food. Somebody just died, you have the funeral, then you have the big thing afterwards with food. So no matter what, you're always bringing food to people. Oh, I just had a surgery, bring me food. I have a birthday, we get food. And it's a great wingman. So what do you do on dates? You go and eat, right? So it's you see how it's getting connected more and more and more emotionally into our daily lives, and it's pretty dang reliable and makes us feel great. So we have this behavioral reinforcement since birth. Social reinforcement, food is everywhere in our social events. We have the caveman brain that's reinforcing all of this. And then we have the physiological reinforcement. We talked about blood sugar and the hormones, happy hormones. And then emotional reinforcement that we just talked about. So let me ask you, if I asked you to give up eating cold turkey, what would you say? You'd be like, no way, I would eventually die. Sure, I might be able to go a few hours, but I probably would eventually die, right? So it's an addiction, right? You can't ask somebody who is, a narcotic addict to just stop. Hey, just stop. So I say that food is the only addictive substance that you can't go cold turkey from. So you can ask everybody else, no matter what, even if it's caffeine or nicotine, oh, just stop. Just don't do it. Just don't have it. With food, you can't do that because you won't be able to survive very long. So you can't just say to a heroin addict, well, just have a little bit so you can survive, but don't go overboard. But that's basically what we're doing when we're telling people to control their food, is that we're kind of approaching it in that way. We'll just have a little bit, don't overdo it. And then that addict in us is like, really? I don't know how to do that. I can tell you I'll try, but I'm pretty sure I can't do that. So how the heck do we deal with it all, with all of these things stacked against us, which is what I'll cover in part 2. So this is Captain Lincoln with Fireteam Whiskey, and I have brought you our Warrior Wellness webinar on Nutritional Psychology 101.